Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Could you please give me a +1 in the chat if you can see and hear me? And it would be great if you could also keep your cameras on if it's feasible for you. All right, great. I'm going to be peeking over the screen a little bit because I have the chat window open on another monitor. I know last time I think I missed a few messages in the chat because it was not like I didn't have it in front of me. Hopefully it'll be better this time. Okay, so let's kind of get started. I'm still stabilizing a little bit with the logistics aspects of the course. So just bear with me. Hopefully the dust will settle, by the end of this week. I think I had received one inquiry over email, which I will respond to individually, but I think it may be of broader interest. So I'll just bring it up here. It's again, just mostly something to do with logistics. So the question was, if you have to miss some classes for truly unavoidable reasons, then what happens to the quizzes that you miss? And to that, I will say that I think we should be able to adjust for that. So I'll try to share the specifics later, but I'm thinking we can drop off the 3 lowest scores or something like that, so that, even if you miss a few classes here and there for whatever reason, it will not really affect your overall grade. So I haven't really figured out what's the most precise way of getting this right, but I think just dropping the bottom 3 or bottom 5 performances, something like that should work. But I do need to make sure that there's enough point weightage to go around from the remaining classes because I haven't checked the holiday schedule yet. So I'll just spend some time doing some homework and let you know about the details. But philosophically, don't worry about missing a few classes here and there. I think we should have enough buffer that should not hurt your overall performance. And also, I think although item pool will immediately tell you if your answers are right or wrong, it may be a bit tedious for you to keep track of them manually. So I'm working on a portal where you can just log in with a password and your roll number or something like that, and basically see your quiz scores up to whatever class has happened. Again, I'll try to make sure that they're at least updated on a weekly basis so that you have a sense of how things are going. I will try to share things like class averages. I know that that kind of trivia is helpful, but once again, I have to confess that that's not the sort of thing I'm very good at keeping up with. But at least your own scores, you will have a sense of what they are like. And because this is a small class, I'm sure you'll have a sense of your position relative to others and all of those other details that you might care about. So that's just one thing in terms of logistics. I'm just checking the chat to see if there are any questions. Of course, at any point, feel free to just unmute yourself and ask any questions that you might have. And I think there was a suggestion last time to make the topics of the next class known sort of in advance. Can you just raise your hand if you actually went to the website and checked that I had mentioned that we will be discussing matroids? And did you read up on matroids before coming to this class? Because if anybody did that, then I will actually talk about matroids to respect your homework. But on the other hand, I did feel that I just said matroids, but I didn't really give you any specifics about what exactly we will cover. So I'm not sure, how much it must have been thoda bahut haath pair maar ke you may have just, looked around a little bit, but I'm not sure if you were able to prepare in a meaningful way. As I see it, I think the majority of you haven't probably done your research on matroids. I guess kisne kiya? I thought I saw one raised hand. Okay, so that is so just give me a second. I don't have the participant view here, so I have to figure out how to do that while I'm sharing my screen. So is that Shoaib? Are you raising your hand?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay, cool.
But for
So,
today, it was like
a
we will
second,
be
let me also make sure that my speaker is correctly set. No, it's not. Sorry. Can you please repeat so I can hear you?
It shows for today we have a greedy algorithm where we are going to split the intervals. And on Thursday session, it was for Metroids. I do even try to search for the Metroids, but I barely understand anything, to be honest.
Okay, all right, cool. That's a relief. I just wanted to do something fun today instead of Metroids because in my mind, I promised that we will do Metroids, but and probably warm up to it. So yeah, thanks for Yeah, I think what we will do today, we'll just continue talking about, I think last time we talked about activity scheduling. And what I'll do for the next class where we will talk about matroids is I'll try to add a few notes in advance so that, if you really want to look it up before coming in, you'll have some time to take a look. But really, the hope is that the classes will be self-contained and that you will be able to access you'll be able to work with the questions in the quiz just by tuning into class. So just in case you don't get time to do like revision or preparation in advance, don't worry too much about it. Okay. So in fact, this time I'm going to go off script. As I said this week, just, I'm also kind of getting into the rhythm of, how things are going to go. So I think I've hopefully added the link to the previous recording. And now that we will have we'll start having more videos. I'll just make a playlist and I'll add these videos to that playlist so you can find all the recordings in one place. And this may be useful, especially if you're like preparing around the midsem or whatever. But by and large, I think just showing up should be enough in terms of just keeping up with the course. So to the extent possible, I'll try to add brief notes both before and after the class. And I'll also start posting on Discord as and when I make changes to the website, because I don't think you would really know. I don't think you get a notification when I make any updates. So I'll try to do that manually. Okay, so now I think with all that out of the way, and again, I don't see any other questions in the chat. So let's just maybe get started with the stuff I want to talk about. So from last time was the problem of these warring islands. That's what we discussed last time, right? So was the greedy strategy clear? Did it make sense? And do any of you have any questions about how that works or why that works? In terms of why the greedy strategy is the optimal one. Remember what we said was that we will pick the interval that essentially finishes first. We will kind of hold on to that as the witness for like, okay, so we do have to kill this bridge. So as I said, imagine that you're taking a walk. So just to recall the problem, we had islands labeled 1 to n arranged on a line, and we had a list of pairs of islands which had a war, and we wanted to make sure that at least one of the bridges between these pairs ij is destroyed, and we wanted to destroy the minimum number of bridges. So we said we will just take a walk from left to right, and anytime we see that there is a request that's getting completely left out, then we will just roll back and destroy the last bridge on that request, on that interval. And of course, this is like a toy problem in that, the story about the islands and the conflicts is all bogus, obviously. But I think I think as was pointed out to me in a DM on Discord, these things actually do reflect, real life problems as well. So for instance, I think I hinted to the fact that this is very similar to the traditional activity scheduling problem, where let's say you're given a set of activities. I don't remember if we talked about the example of the Olympic Games, but let's say there are all these games going on and you want to catch them live. In fact, I think last was it Friday or Saturday, I think the two finals, the wrestling and the javelin finals, were like at 4 p.m. and at 4:30 p.m. or something like that. And at some point you may have to make a choice between which one you want to watch. So you have all these schedules, and again, you might think that television is like a thoda chindi example hai, it's like a frivolous example again. But if you want to be all serious about this, you can think of like tasks being scheduled on some sort of an operating system. So different programs say that they want to run something for a certain duration, they want to run it at a certain time, and you have to figure out which tasks you can take on, and you want to maximize the number of tasks that you can take on. But at least in a single threaded system where you cannot multitask, you can not afford to have two tasks that overlap. So essentially, all of these different scenarios are modeled by essentially finding a maximum collection of pairwise disjoint intervals where you're given a collection of intervals on a line. So that is kind of the goal. And this idea of picking the interval that finishes first as kind of, as sort of the greedy strategy. Essentially, what is happening here is that you are effectively collecting the maximum collection of disjoint intervals. So when we were doing islands war, the goal was a little bit different. we wanted to stab all the intervals, right? We wanted to make sure that, you can draw, let's say, vertical lines through these bridges, and you wanted to make sure that when you do that, you end up stabbing all of the intervals. So that's a slightly different problem, but we argued last time that that's essentially the same as finding a maximal collection of, or a maximum collection of mutually disjoint intervals. So that's sort of my kind of really fuzzy recap of the kind of things that we discussed last time. There are just two main takeaways. One is that although it was posed as a toy problem, it definitely has, it's an abstraction for modeling many actual applications. So this kind of thing is definitely really useful. And the second aspect is that hopefully the greedy choice that we made, hopefully you can see why that is justified. So the main argument that you needed to make was that definitely you have to drop as many bridges, at least as many bridges as there are disjoint requests, because there's no bridge that can handle two disjoint requests at once. And now this greedy strategy basically shows you that it is enough to basically, drop one bridge from each of these requests. The requests that trigger the destructions, those happen to be disjoint. And, basically you see that if you destroyed these bridges, you've taken care of everything. So we did not make this explicit, but you can essentially write a proof saying that if there is some request that is not handled, then that will essentially violate the greedy choice that you made. Like, how did you miss out on this interval? And if you think about that, you will see that you get to a contradiction. So I don't plan to do this explicitly unless, somebody has a request to actually go through it, because I want to switch gears and give you another example, which also has like an intervals flavor, but it's going to be a little bit different and hopefully also fun. So, so let me know if we are good to switch to the next problem. Can you raise your hand if we can move on and talk about the next problem? Okay, all right. So that looks like I have a go ahead from most of you. All right, so thanks very much. Great. So let me just see if I can share. So do you see like a image of a pancake kind of a thing on your screen? Okay, let me just make sure that that's set up properly. Just hoping that I'm sharing my screen all along, but what about now? You see something, at least a picture? Okay, so this again, if you want to actually go out there and code, this is a problem from a Google Code Jam contest, I think back in 2017. It was called the oversized pancake flipper. So apologies if you've already seen this problem, but if you haven't, then it's kind of a fun one. The problem keeps talking about pancakes. I couldn't find good pictures of pancakes, so we will instead talk about cookies. So the problem statement will remain exactly the same, nothing changes, but instead of pancakes, we'll have cookies. And hopefully people like cookies here. Cookies, think chocolate chip cookies. And we're going to have cookies that have two sides as well. So this is very realistic. So we have the, just see if I can get this to change. So there's the front face, which has the chocolate chips on it. And then there is the back side, which does not have chocolate chips on it. So that's the plain side. So according to the terminology in the problem, we are going to be calling this the happy face and the black side. So the happy side and the black side. Okay. Now, it turns out that these cookies are being cooked on, you can imagine a long oven. So they are placed in a row, okay, one after the other. And some of them are facing up and some of them are facing down. So let's just see if this animation works. So just imagine that there is like a long sequence of these cookies and some of them are up and some of them are down. And what you have to do in this problem is that you have to flip the cookies over so that they all are facing up. So that is your task. Now, if you could just flip one cookie at a time, then this is very easy, right? You just take all the cookies that are facing the wrong way and you just flip them. So that's not a very interesting problem. So the challenge is that what you're given is a oversized flipper. So it doesn't flip one cookie at a time. it flips k cookies at a time, k consecutive cookies at a time. So you cannot how do you say, like, you cannot damage this flipper and make it smaller or anything. It's a rigid object and it will only flip k cookies at a time. So here, for instance, k is 3. So what will happen if you decide to flip is that the cookies essentially change their state. They don't get flipped from left to right. Okay, so the sequence is the same, but in place they will get overturned. So everything that was facing up before will now face down, and everything that was facing down will now face up. Okay, so let's just try this again. So here we have something that is face down, up and up. So blank, happy, happy. So once you flip this, it'll become happy, blank, blank. Hopefully, if I did that correctly, yeah, that's what will happen, right? So this is what happens if you have a cookie flipper of size 3. So now, of course, this, I mean, may or may not be of interest to you, but on the right-hand side, you have sort of how the problem statement is given on CodeJam, and there are some limits of how large the input can be and things like that. So for those of you who like doing this sort of thing, this usually helps you reverse engineer how fast an algorithm you should come up with. But you can mostly ignore that. It's not really relevant, except I do want to point out that the size of the cookie flipper is at least 2, which means that, you know, the trivial case where the oversized cookie flipper is not really oversized, it just flips one cookie at a time. That is not even under consideration. That's not interesting at all. So your cookie flipper has size at least 2, and you know, that's the main thing that I want to note here. And now I want all of us to take 2 minutes and think about whether, you know, you can play with small examples. If you have a notebook handy, that's great. You can play with small examples and think about you know, whether there could be situations where you cannot achieve this goal at all, right? So forget about, I mean, ultimately we want to minimize the number of times that we execute these flips, okay? But forget about minimizing. Like first, as a first cut, I want to know, is it even always possible to do this? So hopefully the problem statement is clear. If it is not clear, then please let me know and we can discuss it a little more. But you can also find the item pool link in the Zoom chat. So the first question is essentially asking you the question on the slide, which is it possible that this task can be sometimes impossible? Or is it like, is it that you will always come up with a strategy? It's just a matter of minimizing the number. So let's just take 2 minutes and think about that. And let me, in the meantime, check how many of us are here so that I can tally the numbers. But I'm just going to pause for 2-3 minutes here. And again, either unmute yourself or just drop your questions in the chat if anything at all is unclear. Thanks.
I actually wanted to make sure if I got the question correct.
Sure.
So there is a string of characters or cookies, whatever, and we have to see if any size of k flips all of them to 1 or the upside, right?
So yeah, that's a good point. So that would be a slightly different question where you have to come up with what k do you need to make everything the correct size. So here k is given to you as a part of the input. So you are given the string and you're also given k. So you are told that you can only flip 3 cookies at a time, or you're told that you can flip 7 cookies at a time, but that number is fixed and it's given. And given this number and given this sequence, I'm asking, is it possible that you can come up with your own instances where the task is just impossible? Like kuch bhi kar lo, you will not be able to get all the cookies facing the right way up. Yeah, is that fine now?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. So K is like, that's an interesting question as well. Like come up with a K that would work. And yeah, let's come back to that in a bit. I mean, I'll have to think about how that would work. But
ma'am?
Yeah.
Can you go back to the previous slide?
Yeah.
Ma'am, so when we just, for example, k is equals to 2, so we'll choose first 2 cookies, and then the second go will be third and fourth, or second and third.
So you can do whatever you want. There is no restriction. So you can decide to flip in the first step, you can decide to flip the first and the second ones. In the second step, you can decide to flip like the 42nd cookie and the 43rd cookie. Then in the third step, you can come back and flip the second and the third one. So So in what sequence you decide to flip the cookies, that is totally up to you. So so you have to figure out some sequence which makes all the cookies face up. And the next level of this question is that you want to do it with a minimum number of steps, with a minimum number of flips. But we'll come back to how do we determine the minimum. But for that minimum, we also have to be sure ki, first of all, something is possible, right? And after that, we'll worry about minimizing it. So can there be situations where no matter how much time you spend, no matter how many flips you make, no matter how clever you are about where you flip, whatever you do, you will never be able to make all the cookies face the same way. And maybe there is like a hint in the fact that I have promised you that all these questions here will be reasonably straightforward. So it's not very hard, I think, to see. Like, I don't know what more to say without giving it away completely. So, but it's not very hard to see the solution to this problem, I think. So let me see if on item pool. Okay, so item pool seems to have a divided consensus right now. I think 4 or 5 of you have voted and it's 3-2. 4-3. Okay, so let me switch my screen share so that. Like, can you see the item pool outcomes now? So hopefully the screen is showing you the live stats from the poll. So it seems like there's one option that is gaining some consensus, but it's still a bit divided.
Ma'am?
Yeah.
Yeah, suppose only the last cookie is left to be turned up and we have K more than 2. So is it a restriction that the tray should hold at least 2 or more than, the tray should be full?
Correct. So you can assume that the length of the tray is at least K. And another thing which I think, okay, so maybe this is important and I should mention it properly. The oven is such that your cookie flipper cannot go over the edge. Okay, so in the sense that let's say let's say you have 10 cookies, right? And let's say you have an oversized cookie flipper of size 3, right? You cannot flip like the last 2 cookies by saying I will start from the 9th position, 9th, 10th, and the 11th one is like blank, so the cookie flipper is just hanging from the edge and it's flipping the last 2. So that is not allowed. Okay, so the cookie flipper, I mean, after the n minus kth cookie, it will not even fit. So you cannot flip like the last k minus 1, the last k minus 2, or the last 1 cookie. You cannot flip those like separately. Okay, so the scope of the cookie flipper will stop at the n minus kth cookie. After that, it will not fit on the oven. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Cool. And you will have at least as many cookies as the size of the cookie flipper. That you can take as a given, because otherwise anyway you will not be able to do anything. Like if your cookie flipper has size 5 and your tray has 3 cookies, then though it's like, the game is over before it's begun kind of thing. So just assume that that is there. That's like a sanity check. Okay. All right, I think this discussion has already probably like given major hints. So hopefully the majority is towards the option that I had in mind. So let's see. I wonder if everybody has voted. So I have to probably check how many of you are here. So there are 17 of us, and I think everybody has voted. Does anybody want more time to think about this, or should we move on? Okay, so I don't hear any complaints, so let's take a look. Okay, so yes, so the task is indeed impossible even for k equals 2, and thankfully that's like the majority answer. So let's go back, and I think we again have one very optimistic person in the audience. It's never impossible, but unfortunately, I don't know if the misunderstanding was about the tray, but I think even without that, it is going to be impossible. Let's see. So let me switch the screen share back to the slides. Okay, slides visible now, right? Yeah, okay. So yeah, so if k is equal to 1, which is a situation we are not even considering, remember k is at least 2. So if k is 1, then you just flip the cookies one by one and it's never a problem. But if k is equal to 2, which is like the minimal interesting case, then there's a very minimal counterexample as well. Does anybody want to suggest a very easy counterexample?
Ma'am, when there are three cookies which are in alternative and we have
Yeah.
two size of two.
Correct, exactly. So in
Flipper.
fact, yeah, in fact, I even have like just two cookies which are facing the wrong way. I mean, one of them is facing the right way and one of them is facing the wrong way. And now you can just like keep flipping and this will never end. Okay. So you'll never be able to fix the state of this example. So it's definitely possible that it is impossible. And one of your tasks therefore is going to be able to make that high level distinction also. So just keep that at the back of your minds. Okay, so now that we know this, let's maybe before moving on, okay, so before moving on to this question, let's just do a couple of examples. So I'll go back to item pool here. I think I have the examples written out on item pool. I don't have them on the slides, so I'll just share my screen from here. So this is essentially minus is going to be, let me just double check. So let's say minus is blank and plus is happy. So this is just like one, I think we have like 3 examples, so we'll just go through to get a feel for what's happening.
Ma'am, should we write the number of flips that are required?
Yes, yes. So the solution is the number of flips. And now we really want to think about the minimum number of flips. So try to do it as using the fewest number of flips possible, basically.
Ma'am, please can you repeat the question?
Right. So the question is, what is the smallest number of flips that you need to fix this sequence of pancakes? So here what's happening is that the first 3 are blank side up, then the 4th one is happy side up, then the 5th one is blank, the 6th one is happy, the 7th one is blank, the 8th one is happy, and the 9th one is blank. And K is 3. So you have a 3-sized pancake flipper. So you want to minimize, like, so the number you're entering is either -1 if it is impossible, or you're entering the smallest number of flips with which you can fix this sequence. So that's the idea. So remember that plus is happy and minus is blank. Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to wait till this count goes up to 16. Just make sure that you enter a number, and that number can either be the minimum number of flips or it can be -1 if you believe that it's impossible. Yeah. I'm not sure how you will like convince yourself with a proof that it's impossible, because it cannot be that, 2 minute try kiya aur nahi hua to it must be impossible, right? That's not, it may also be that you have just missed some way of doing it. So ideally, if you're saying that it is impossible, you need to have like some argument, like even with that small example, we kind of had some reasoning, right? That, you will essentially, no matter what you do, you will loop forever. So it's kind of clear that you cannot do it. So at least at that level, there should be some justification for why you think it's impossible. Yeah. There seems to be a near consensus emerging, but let's just wait for the remaining 3 answers. Okay, so I think just a couple of you left. So heads up.
Ma'am, please wait for something.
Yeah, don't worry. I will not reveal the answer before checking with everyone. So for those of you who have finished and you're confident about your answer and you don't want to double check it, maybe you want to start thinking about what would be, like, remember we are focused on greedy algorithms this week. So what would be sort of a greedy strategy? How would you come up with a way to do this? And remember, whatever strategy you come up with, there should be a way that it accounts for the possibility that you may not be able to do this at all. So there should be some like if statement somewhere in your code which says, or in your algorithm, which says that, okay, if this situation happens, then, then all baits are off, we cannot do it. So your algorithm should account for that possibility as well. So, just think about that and we'll try to discuss ideas when we get to it.
Ma'am, just to clarify, it's like all features should be plus when I'm done with the setting, right?
It should be all plus when you're done, correct?
Okay, thank you.
I should have written this. Plus is happy and minus is blank. So I think there's one entry remaining. So whenever you're done, could you just let me know so that then I'll advance? Yeah. Oh, yeah. I see 16 responses. I also hope that stopping at 16 is the right thing to do, because last time I think there were at least a couple of you who had submitted with two names. Maybe it didn't work in the beginning and we just had to change. And it's like last time it was easy for me to filter out because one of them had a non-zero score and the other didn't. But in general, yeah, just try to make sure that you're logged into one active session and you have just one entry so that things are like easy for me to track. Yeah. Cool. So it looks like there are very bad at counting, as you can tell, but it looks like there are 16 entries. So does anybody want me to wait anymore? Okay, so I think it's a safe bet to take a look at the answers. Okay, so most of you said 3. 3 of you said -1, which is a nice coincidence. And some of you probably just needed a few more flips. Okay, so I don't know if I zoom in here, whether that's going to be visible. But notice that, okay, does somebody want to explain how did you do it with 3 flips? Anyone? Yeah, I mean, just unmute yourself and go for it.
So like the first 3, there are minus, so we can flip the first 3.
Correct.
And then the minus plus plus, Yeah, and then the yeah.
So the first three are all minuses. So you flip them so they become all pluses. Then you see that there's a minus at the end. So isko to you have to flip somehow. So you have to position the pancake flipper like that. And you have to get these guys to flip. And then that'll leave you with three minuses in the middle. And then you can flip those, and then you'll be done. Everybody is going to be happy with three flips. You can probably see that two flips will not be enough because you definitely need one here. And you need one here. But because your pancake flipper has like size 3, even after doing these two forced flips, there's still going to be an unhappy guy in the middle. So like 3 is clearly you cannot do better than 3. And because of what you just said, 3 is enough. So 3 is the optimal here. So it's because you can do it with 3, it is not impossible. So hopefully, so let's maybe just go to the next one, which is really like a are we awake kind of a check. So
Ma'am, I have one doubt. Like, do we need to go in serial order, like, or do we need to modify any three?
Okay, so that's like the next to next question. So I will answer it after you all answer it. Okay, so I actually literally have this question, like, do we need to go in a particular order or does the order not matter? So I'm going to request everybody to think about this and it'll get addressed. Yeah, is that fine?
Yes, ma'am.
Cool, thanks. And as I said, this question is a free question. So the hint is that I do expect everybody to get this one right, but no, there shouldn't be different answers on this one. So just think of this as like, these are the kind of tests that you come up with to look at edge cases, like is your code handling like some stupid inputs correctly, okay? So if you see here, you really have no work to do. So like it's a stupid answer. And it's not -1, but it's very close to -1. So I think that's all the hints I can give. Okay, I really want everyone to get this question right. So I'm probably like going to stall till everybody has the same answer. एक ही attendance वाला question है, ठीक है? आप हो और सुन रहे हो या नहीं? That's all. This was a nice question. Whoever brought it up, I'm sorry I don't have the I don't have the participant window here, but so in the previous example, we said we will do the leftmost flip first and then the rightmost one and then the one in the middle. So for example, could you have done the one in the middle first and then the leftmost one and then the rightmost one? Would that have made any difference? So think about that because that's something that will actually be a useful stepping stone to the final ideas as well. Okay, guys, come on. Everybody is already happy. You don't have to do any work. So this should be easy. So I think there's like 3 of you who are yet to either answer or give the correct answer. That's my guess.
If there is no flip needed, then how to express that?
Sorry?
If there's no flip needed, so how to do the 0 flips, like entering the number?
That's only the answer, na? जो तुमने अभी बोला. That's a number. You can enter that number.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I think that's going to speed this along. So, okay. So this is really like one person left, hopefully awake. So I don't get to see who answered when. So, it's completely fine to take your time, but at the same time, okay, I think I'm just going to mark this as 1 for everybody because it was literally discussed as well. So there's no work to be done and your answer can be 0. That's a legitimate answer. And when you're writing code, especially, these are like good edge cases to check. On the extremes, does your code like do the right thing? Is your variable initialized properly? It's that sort of a thing. So it's these kind of stupid inputs are useful for that kind of situation. Let's look at this one last thing, which is very similar to something that we have already discussed. So that's the hint. We have already talked about this kind of a situation. So I don't know if this is hopefully clearly visible on your screens. It's a minus, plus, minus, plus, minus. Somebody even said alternating in some situation in response to a previous question. So ये भी more or less बता ही दिया है. So just just think about it for a minute and hopefully everybody converges on the right answer here as well. So again, if you want to think ahead a little bit, the next question is going to be, does the sequence of flips matter? So, so suppose I tell you that I'm going to do this collection of flips, right? Every flip is, so once K is fixed, every flip is completely determined by where it starts, right? So if I give you the locations, you know what flips are going to happen. So I can say that I want to flip starting at the 5th cookie, then I want to flip starting at the 7th one, then the 1st one, then the 10th one. So that's, that's a set of flips, and you could execute it in, many different ways. So if you have a set of, let's say, some n flips, so n I'm already using for the number of cookies. So let me use a different notation here. So suppose I give you a set of q flips that I want to make. There are q factorial sequences in which you can make these flips. Now, do all of these sequences lead to the same outcome? Do some of them lead to different outcomes? That's what we want to think about next. So just thinking ahead a little bit. And guys, this is also more or less attendance question. Okay, so please take that hint and answer this correctly, everybody. So if you remember the first question that we asked, and I said, does somebody want to explain their answer? The response was that an alternating sequence of cookies would work. So if, yeah, I mean, so if you remember what was the first thing we discussed, the answer to this should be kind of evident. All right, I think everyone has committed to an answer. Does somebody want me to wait? Oh, sorry, did you raise your hand then? Okay, so I okay, are we done? Do you think we can move on? Yeah, everyone? Okay, so I don't hear any objections. So let's look at the answer for this one. Okay, so almost all of you, I think all of you have said -1. Again, somebody thought it can be done with 2 flips. Maybe, maybe you did not notice the last minus, but even then, I don't know how you can do it with 2 flips. Okay, so maybe there is some substring of this that can be done with 2 flips, and maybe it was like a typo when you looked at the string. So maybe you just want to think about that a little bit. So the reason it's -1 is essentially this alternating pattern, right? So you have an oversized flipper, and there's a plus and a minus at the very end. So no matter what you do, right, how will you get both of these to be in the right parity? So whatever you do, it is going to have the opposite effect on these two adjacent cookies, right? So it's the same logic that we used when we were dealing with the impossible example. It's just a slightly different example. Like the cookie flipper ka size is 4 and the string is longer and all that. But it's the same logic. If you just focus your attention on, for example, the last two cookies, right? You will never be able to fix them. And one important thing here again is that the cookie flipper does not overhang from the end. I don't know if you allow it to overhang. I don't know if you can fix this. That's a good thing to check. I think even then it will not be possible. Maybe if you let it overhang from both sides, maybe yes. But even then, I'm not sure how to do it with two flips. So yeah, if anybody has any comments, please post them on Discord. If, I cannot think of anything quickly right now, but we can continue this conversation on Discord if you have any more thoughts. Okay, so let me pose the next question here itself, which is, does the order in which the flips happen matter? So it could go back to the slides, but essentially it's going to be the same question there as well. So I think while you guys are answering, let me just show you the slides for this. So here is a possible sequence of flips that happen. So for instance, we flip at the first location. Then we flip at the second location, and then we go and flip at the last location. So if you work it out, so I was too lazy to animate the flips, but okay, if you flip at the first location, you will get happy blank. Then you will get two consecutive blanks from the first flip. So if you flip from the second position, then both of those blanks will become happy. And then you have these two consecutive blanks. So you flip them and both of them become happy. So that is what is going to happen with this two-sized cookie flipper. But now suppose somebody says, no, I want to do it in the reverse sequence. So maybe they're like superstitious about starting from the beginning or something. So they want to start from here. So they will first fix these two. Then, oops, sorry, I got that sequence wrong. So they'll first flip these two, and then they'll go back and flip this pair first. So that makes it, that if I read the complete sequence from the left after this flip, it's going to be blank, blank, happy. Okay. And then you basically go to the last, in this case, the first position, and your last flip is going to be at the first position. And based on what we have just described, you can probably make out that whether you do this in like going from beginning to end or from end to beginning, whatever the sequence is, at the end, everybody will be happy side up. But maybe there was a different sequence, like let's say you started from the middle, then you went to the end, and then you went to the other end. Maybe something different will happen. For this is a small example, so you can actually write it out and experiment and see what happens. But also I want you to think a little more generally and think about, like, given any set of flips, is it possible that two different sequences?
Is it like the number of flips that you're saying in sequence? Should they be the optimal number of flips?
Okay, so that's a good question. Like, does this answer depend on whether the list of flips is the optimal number, like it's an optimal sequence of flips leading to the correct answer? So not really. I'm just talking about any arbitrary set of flips. At the end, you may not even like make everybody happy. So it's just some set of flips. So somebody has just come and said, कि आज मेरा mood है, I will flip the cookie row starting from the 5th position, starting from the 14th position, and starting from the 2nd position. So this is a set of flips. And let's say, somebody has just given you these instructions and they've not told you in which sequence to execute them. So now the question is, should you be nervous कि, ऐसे किया तो it'll be one way and किसी और तरीके से किया, if you did it some other way, then it'll lead to some other outcome? Is it going to be like that? Or is it that no matter how you execute these sequences, the final end outcome will be the same? So we are not making any assumption about the set of flips. It may or may not come from an optimal solution. So this is just a question about any set of flips. So let's just think about this for a minute. Okay, so I'm really going to pause for a minute here because I think this does require some thought. At least I will say that it was not very obvious to me. Literally have a timer. Set it up. So if your answer is that the sequence matters, ideally try to see if you can be confident about it by coming up with a concrete example. Yeah. So I think more than half of you have answered. Let's give it another minute or so. And it seems to be slightly divided. So, okay, one small hint is think about how a single cookie will experience this sequence of flips, right? And like just think about it through the perspective or the lens of a single cookie sitting somewhere on this row of cookies. Like if you execute it in one particular permutation, what's going to happen? If you execute it a different way, how will this cookie experience it? Is the experience going to be different for different permutations or not? Okay, so it looks like everyone has committed to an answer. So should we move on or does somebody want more time? Okay, so I don't hear anything. So let's look at what you guys think. Okay, so most of you think that the set of flips that's executed doesn't matter. Now, normally I would just ask one of you to explain, but here, because we are slightly running out of time, I'll just try to give you the explanation that I had in mind. As I said, it's going to be based on trying to live the experience of the sequence of flips through the perspective of a single cookie. So let's just focus on, so let's say the slides are visible, right? Okay, so let's say that you have like this is some set of flips. It may not be optimal. It may not make everybody happy at the end. In fact, I have no idea what the set of flips is doing. But you have like clearly k is equal to 3 here, and this is some set of flips. Now let's just focus on a particular cookie, an arbitrary one. So this is the 6th cookie from the left, and let's just start executing these flips, right? So the first flip involves this cookie. So it's going to flip its state. It's going to go from happy to blank. The second flip does not involve this cookie, so no change. Third also does not involve it, no change. Fourth also no change. The fifth one is going to flip the cookie again. The sixth one is also going to flip the cookie again. And the seventh flip does not touch this cookie at all. So the cookie was touched by the flips 3 times. There were 3 flips that involved this cookie, right? Now, does it really matter in what sequence you make these flips? Like this cookie will experience like being flipped over 3 times, irrespective of in what sequence these flips are made, correct? Now, there was nothing special about the 6th cookie, right? This fact is true for every cookie on the board, correct? So no matter which sequence you execute these flips in, the final outcome is going to be the same for every cookie. Is everyone convinced by this, or does this make sense, sort of? Yeah. I would say this wasn't completely obvious to me, but I think the next question is a relatively easy one. So the answer to this question, of course, is, I mean, now hopefully we agree that it's no. The order doesn't matter. We have 1 minute left. Let's just do another quick one and then we will complete the algorithm in the next class. So, okay, I think I've given you the answer before giving you the question. So let's actually pull up the question here. Just give me a moment. So you can think of this as another attendance question. So suppose now you have an optimal solution. So somebody was asking previously that is the given set of flips or sequence of flips optimal? So at that time I was saying, no, it's like an arbitrary sequence, but now suppose you have an optimal sequence, right? Will you ever perform the same flip twice? Will that ever be necessary? Okay, guys, I want everyone to get to the same answer here. Consider the passion with which I'm asking this question. Will you ever need to repeat a flip? Will you ever need to make the same flip twice? So hopefully from the tone and from the slide that you saw, you know what the answer is going to be. Okay. ये क्या है? Why do we have an outlier? So, okay. I'll just wait for everybody's answers to merge. But okay, so so if you're an optimal sequence and let's say you perform the same flip an odd number of times, that is going to be the same as performing it just once. Because remember, the order doesn't matter. So you can bring all of these repeated flips together. Guys, I'm helping. Why are you becoming more divisive? So, oh my God. Okay. So if you have like, okay, so if you have the same flip happening 5 times, because you can reorder the flips and nothing will change, you can make all the 5 flips happen consecutively by reordering. But if you're making the 5 flip, I mean, if you're making the same flip 5 times, like 4 of those will cancel out, right? They will just, you know, negate each other. So that's the same as doing the flip once. And if you're doing the same flip an even number of times, that is so even more like weird. Why would you flip at the same position twice? That's the same as doing nothing. Oh, thank God. Let me just reveal this right now before anybody changes their mind. You never need to repeat a flip in an optimal situation. Okay, in an optimal solution, it's always a distinct set of flips. And from here, you should be able to get to a brute force solution quite easily because you know that you know the order of flips doesn't matter, and because you'll never repeat a flip, the question only is which flips are you going to make, right? You don't even have to worry about how many times. You either make a flip or you don't. So, so it's just a matter of which flip do you make. So that will lead you to like an exponential brute force solution. But of course, we will improve it to a polynomial time greedy solution. So hopefully don't spoil it for yourself. Obviously, if you search for this, you will find this problem. In fact, I will give the link on the website also. But just, you know, avoid looking it up and, you know, try to come up with a greedy solution yourself. It's a lot of fun. And we will discuss this at the start of the next class. All right, this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for your participation, everyone, as usual. I had a blast and we will see you Wednesday, right? So if I remember correctly. So Wednesday, we will continue this conversation. Thanks again and bye for now. Cheers.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks. Ta-da.
Mm.